You have a great story. And what I love about your story is I can't even imagine coming home when you have a whole family of doctors and nurses and you say, hey, I'm going into life insurance. You know, that's like saying, guess what? I'm going to make my career in the Amway business, and everybody just falls off their chair, right?
Yeah.
So tell your story because it gives you perspective on things.
Yeah. So, hey, well, thank you for having me on. And like you said, I think you guys have a lot of amazing momentum. Trey was texting me earlier and he was like, man, I want Neal and MJ to win so bad. Like, I love them. I'm like, me too. And he's like, they got a lot of momentum. And I couldn't agree more. And I think, actually company wide, we have a lot of amazing momentum right now with some of the things we've done. But no, I appreciate you letting me get on. Neal, it's an honor to talk to your team. And I love working with people that are growing and grinding. And I remember we had a conversation a while back, and you were like, "Man, like I'm having a hard time recruiting because I'm not 20 some years old." And I was like, "You're looking at it all backwards. Like you have so much perspective and a wealth of knowledge, and like you've been a good business person, but you've been a good good father, a good husband. You're a great example, and you have a lot of experience. Like I think you should look at it that way because I look up to you in those ways, And I mean that, and you've been an awesome example for me and for my personal life. So I appreciate being in business with you. It's been a lot of fun for us to grow this thing together, and I'm happy to be here. So, um, but yeah, so my story, I'll try to tell as quick a version as possible, and I'll try not to talk too fast, like Juan said, where Juan said Zach talks too fast, and I can barely understand him, and I'm like, well, I can't understand you either, Juan. So we're even. But I started in life insurance when I was 22 years old. My wife and I, his girlfriend at the time, wife now, we moved from Boulder, Colorado to Charleston, South Carolina. We both got into medical school. She did this program called Teach for America. I went with her because I knew she was too good for me. And I was like, I'm not letting her go. So I'll move across the country with you because I'm crazy. And moved there. Really didn't have any money to my name at that point. I think I spent a couple $1,000 I had to move across the country, get an apartment. Didn't really have a job lined up. Was going to do medical sales initially, and then didn't really like the way that was going. So I quit that job before I started, and then kind of like I think the way a lot of people get into insurance, right? Like I was like, I got to figure out something to do where I don't have any sort of cap in my commission, but something that I can get into right away and make money, right? That doesn't have a large barrier of entry to it. So I remember I found I think it was it was a ZipRecruiter ad. It said looking for people with athlete or military experience, uncapped commission can make X, Y, Z amount, right? Up to, I think it said up, or I think it just said no cap on your commission. I was like, okay, that sounds good. And, I started doing that. And you mentioned not, what it's like to come home when when your goal has always been to be a doctor. That's your parents' goal for you. It's even your spouse's goal at one point. My sister's a doctor. Like my whole family's all doctors. And one thing I knew early, Neal, was like, and I heard Sean say this, but I think I've always inherently known it. There's only a couple people that will genuinely pull for you unless it benefits them, right? And when you're an entrepreneur, like the people on this call, we're kind of the outliers. We're the fringe people, right? Like we're the crazy ones that don't conform to normal society. And I always knew that people would look at something, and being in business is hard enough without people pulling against you. So like I literally told my wife, and like that was it what I was doing. Like me and her talked about it. I was like, I think I want to do this. Um, she's always been supportive. I couldn't have ever built what we built without her support and always being there. And no matter how crazy it sounded, she was always in. I'm like, let's move here. She's in. Let's move here. She's in. And I didn't tell anyone early on, Neal, because I didn't want the negativity coming in. And I think part of it was I didn't want people to judge me, but I started doing well. And about 2 or 3 months in, I knew I was going to make insurance into a career. I figured out how to sell pretty quickly. What a lot of people that were on here early said is like, as long as you have enough appointments and you get in front of people, you don't really have to be all that good. You can kind of stumble your way through and make some sales, right? But I started understanding and seeing that like if you have enough appointments, you have enough presentations, you'll close a few and you'll get better over time. So my first year in the business, I ended up making a couple $100,000 net. And I looked at it and I was okay, if I go, to medical school, it's going to take, 2 years of medical school, 2 years rotations, 3, 4 years of residency, which my wife is in right now. So getting to see that path. Like she got home at 2 minutes before this call started, right? And she left at 7 a.m. this morning. And she just turned 30, right? Like it's a long path to become a doctor that will make a couple $100,000 a year. So I remember looking at that and realizing like I never really like I did okay. I did fine in school. I could get through school, but I didn't enjoy it. And when I found insurance, I really enjoyed helping people, like solving problems, going through the sales process. I enjoyed that part of it. Even when we were in the field at that point, right? Neal, it was, and you were here, when we were still in the field, and you were still in the field. But like early on, 2017, we only had access to mailers, really. You had to have counties locked out. So I was in South Carolina flying to Ohio to run appointments, but I loved it. Like I really enjoyed the freedom that this business offers, the ability like to, that you eat what you kill and everything's on you. And if you succeed or you fail, like your upline can have some determination in that. The team you're on will certainly help you get to where you're going to get to faster. But the reality is, like, if you're someone who's going to make it, you're going to make it either way. Now, your team will help facilitate that. And everyone on this call is on an amazing team that will help you have, a tremendous amount of success with the systems, processes, leads, knowledge, training that they have. But really, it comes down to you, right? Because there's no base pay. There's no participation trophy for working really hard. There's no gold star if you work 12 hours. It's a you eat what you kill business. And I love that about the business. I knew that it was all on me and it all fell on me. And, whether I was going to succeed or fail, it was going to be my fault. And I think, Neal, mindset wise, I took that approach super early on. I was like, I can blame the clients. I can blame the leads. I can blame the circumstances. But if I blame all these external factors, then you can't fix it. Right. But if you go, hey, it's not them, someone else is having success in this business. It's me. And all I can control is me getting better, then the sky becomes the limit because you keep working on yourself and you don't let the external things, start to drag you down. So I started understanding that from a sales perspective. And then, once I had kind of come to terms with, I'm like, this is gonna be my career. I started, I remember I talked to my dad about it. I talked to my father-in-law, man, 6 months before I talked to my dad about it because we've always been super close. And I was just worried my dad was going to judge me for not wanting to be a doctor. And it was funny. I think there's a saying that goes like, people don't think about you, as much as you think, right? Like, and this is a little bit of an ADD sidebar, but like the other thing I've always done from a mentality standpoint, Neal, is I never complained when things were going bad because I realized like, if you're complaining, people either don't care or are glad that it happened to you for the most part. And there may be one or two mentors you have that are there to help you fix it. But like most people you talk to, like they don't even care that something bad happened to you, or they're rooting for you to fail if they're not on your team and in the business with you. So I never wanted to throw that negativity out there. But I remember I told my dad, like, I want to go I'm doing well in insurance. I like it. This is what I'm doing. And he was like, look, as long as you're happy and you feel fulfilled in what you're doing, like I'm totally fine with that. And now, Neal, that I have a kid, like I understand, and she's 2 years old, so it's different, but I can see that now, like you just want your kids to be okay. So I can understand why sometimes parents are like, oh, like, is insurance the right thing for you to do or not? Like, is that going to work out? And I can kind of see that thinking now. But when I was 22 years old, I just had a massive chip on my shoulder, which I think served me well in a lot of ways. But I was just like, I'm not going to fail. I'm going to prove everyone wrong. And I don't really care what anyone else thinks about me. And I think that what I learned from that was that not worrying about whether people think about you can be very powerful because you're not thinking about it all the time. And all you have to worry about is where your thoughts and what your mind and what your partner and your few mentors in business think. And those are the people that will actually impact you. And you shouldn't take advice from people that are outside of the business anyway. So, I kind of got past that stumbling block, I guess, of caring and worrying what everyone else was thinking about me. And once I got past that, I was able to understand that the business on the recruiting and building side was very much the same as the sales side, right? Now, the hard part for people on here, and that I had a really hard time with when I was selling, is when you sell, it's such instant gratification, right? Like you make a sale, you get paid next week or tomorrow, next week, or a couple weeks from now, right? When you start building a business, the turnaround time on seeing ROI, the efforts you put in now, that may not pay off for 3, 6 months, even a year sometimes, right? But if you plant enough seeds, eventually there'll be an amazing harvest. But I had to learn that to be patient on building a business side, much more patient than you were on the selling and on the selling side. Because I remember there's a lot of people that I have that I'm in business with now that took me, a year, 2, 3, 4 years to recruit that finally came in and then started doing really big things, right? And a good example of that is Jake Wamba, who started with us now, who I think you've met, Neal. He started with us in November. I was talking to him for a year before he got started, right? And then this week, so he's been in the business. He started November. This is his 7th full month in the business. This week, we've contracted like 120 people from a group that he got into, and his group's going to go from doing a couple 100,000, from doing 150, 200,000 a month to 400, 500,000 a month. And early in my career, like if people weren't in right away, I was so quick to cut them off. And I had to learn how to be patient in business and understand that as you keep planting the right seeds and just let people, come along at their own pace. That was one thing mindset wise. The second thing, and then I want to, be able to leave time and go through questions and answer any specific things you guys, want to hear about. But the second thing, and I think the most important thing that seems so simple, but is so difficult, is to never take business personally, right? And what I had to learn was, and a few things that have helped me with this is like, one, if someone ever does something that frustrates me, upsets me, we get into an argument, I disagree with someone, like I had to learn that, like, one, nothing good happens over text messages, and two, I never respond to anyone or never deal with anyone in the moment when I'm frustrated with them. Like I let it cool out before we have another conversation, right? So if Neal and I have a disagreement, we talk. And what I did early on was I would call Neal and I'd be upset and I would yell at him or whatever. We'd yell at each other and blow it up. What I learned was, like, it can take you 2, 3, 4 years to build really good, productive relationships with people, but you can tear those relationships apart in a 30-second phone call if you can't control what you think and what you're saying. So what I had to learn was I had to wait, because I know I can be a hothead sometimes. I think everyone on this call could admit to being a hothead at times, right? So what I had to learn was, when I'm emotional, nothing good happens. So I had to wait until I have a clear head to respond and be able to think through things and make the right decisions, right? And I try to apply that to everything we do in business. So if something goes bad, or you have a bad day or a good day and you feel a certain type of way about it, I still do this to this day. When something happens, think through it. Don't be emotionally attached to it. If you have an agent that quits, an agent that starts, if we contract 100 agents or 100 agents quit, emotionally, I've taught myself to look at that the same way and understand to look at it just from a business perspective and see if there's anything to be learned from it and not take it personally. And I think what hinders a lot of people in this is they have a really great week, and you sell 20, you write 20,000 in a week and you feel like you're on top of the world, right? And you're the best ever. And then the next week you go 0 for 20, and then you think that you're a piece of crap and you suck. And then the next week you have a week where you sell 10 and you're like, okay, I'm decent, right? And I think a lot of times we have a tendency to place that on ourselves. And what I learned to do was go, like, this is just part of the business. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. As long as I have a good attitude and I have strong activity and I keep my mind in the right place, where I understand this is a business, treat it like a business. And if I'm having a bad week, I look at it and see what I'm doing different compared to when I have a good week. And sometimes the numbers just work out that way. And then when I'm having a good week, and this is the hard part, when you're having a really good week, also look at it and don't start thinking that, that you're the Zig Ziglar of insurance, right? You don't start going like, I'm the best, smartest person that's ever been in this business, because when you start doing that and you get complacent, then you'll have bad weeks, right? So I learned to just look at it and take note of what I was doing and stay really even keel, whether it was great, terrible, indifferent, and emotionally stay level and just treat the business like a business and not be so emotionally attached to it. Because when you're in this business, you'll have great weeks where you deposit $20, $30, $40,000 sometimes. You'll have people roll up debt to you. You'll have a bunch of people come work with you. You'll have people quit working with you. And if you get too emotionally invested in every single thing that happens, you'll tear yourself apart in business. But if you can learn to parse those things apart and just look at it as a business and see what you can learn from every different interaction, every different sales call you have, every different recruiting call you have, and take notes from that, then you can be detached from the business. It's almost like you took the pill in the Matrix and you can see the Matrix because you're not so emotionally tied into it all the time. And what I learned on the sales side that really helped me a lot was, every time I didn't sell a policy, instead of being frustrated with it, I would sit there for a minute after, I'd write down everything that happened in the appointment, honestly, because it's easy to go like, oh, I said that. I'd write it down honestly. And then I'd go, okay, like, I screwed this up. This is what happened. And I would call someone who was writing at least double what I was writing. I'd call that person, go, hey, I want to run you through a scenario. This is what happened in this appointment. What could I have done differently here? Right. And then, I use that skill, and I've done the same thing now with building a business. Hey, this is how this group is looking. This is what I'm doing here. Like, what could I do differently here? Working with carriers, having conversations with, like doing different things in the business. I've learned to take those, get feedback on them, and then implement the feedback right away. And what I've also learned, is that applies to every aspect of business, whether you're dealing with personal relationships, with your marriage, whether you're in real estate, you start other businesses. If you can get really good at going out there, making a mess, doing a lot of activity, which is super important. But then the second most important part is being very conscious of what you're doing, paying attention to what you're doing, and figuring out where you can tweak and improve from the mistakes you're making. Because mistakes are really good. They only become bad if you don't pay attention to them and don't improve upon them, as you're going through the business. So, I mean, that's kind of a ADD version of how my brain works and how I think about the business. But I'm really happy to go through and answer any specific questions people have, or scenarios, or could be anything related to sales, recruiting, business stuff, finance, whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm here for.
I want to say one thing that served you well, because when we started in 2019, I didn't even know who you were. And your business protects 6,000 families a month now. That is just, and so that attitude has really paid dividends for you. I mean, when we were in Hawaii and I saw you and Sean, together, I'm like, he's like the fair-haired boy of the company. I mean, in a way, because I think that attitude and that mindset has really grown your business in a big way. So congratulations. Just so everybody knows, Zac's just not another agency owner. I mean, he's one of the agency owners leading the way. He's involved. I mean, hey, you got a minute? No, I'm on with Sean. Here, give me 5 minutes. I'm like, wow. So very, very involved. Really, we're very fortunate, like I said before, to be part of your organization. So I'm going to
I appreciate that, Neal. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick, like you mentioned the mild man. I think that when you're leading a team too, right? Like one thing I forgot to mention is when you have issues come up, it's super important to not dump any of that stuff downhill to your downlines. Like that's the fastest way to corrode your organization. And one thing I always learned from Sean and Andrew and other people is like, there could be all kinds of stuff going on in their business that's a mess, or their personal life that's a mess. And I watch them an agent calls, they flip a switch, they're normal, happy, like you could never tell anything's wrong. And I think as anyone here is building a team, or this applies to talking to people you're selling to too, like you have to get good at compartmentalizing things. And if your home life's a mess, like my home life's been a mess too, but when that client answers the phone and gets on Zoom with you, you have to be there in the moment for them, because they deserve it. Their family deserves it. Their future retirement deserves it. Like they deserve your best all the time. And you have to get super good at leaving your baggage at home. And when your agents call or when your client talks to you, like you have to, if you are sitting there frowning, feeling bad for yourself, they can feel that energy. And you have to get really good at leaving that stuff at home. And if things are not going well, not letting that pass down to, the people in your organization or your clients you talk to, because that'll ruin your sales. And, people won't want to call you, and they won't look at you as a strong leader. They'll look at you as someone who's emotional and volatile, and they won't want to follow you, and they won't believe in what you're doing. So, I learned that, and stability is important when you're building a big organization, because people want to go to you if they think you're stable. If they're not sure if you're going to call them and chew their head off every 6 seconds they have a question, then it's going to be hard for you to build good, meaningful relationships with your team.
Well said. Thank you. Francis, you have anything as a Hall of Fame?
No, that was awesome, Zac. I really appreciate you pouring into everybody and great information for everybody. Hopefully everybody took notes, and I think you've recorded this, so just good info. Thanks, Zac.
All right, let's open it up. If anybody has questions, just jump in, and we've got about 25 minutes we can go. Francis probably got a meeting at 8 o'clock, so.
And don't be shy. I promise. There's no dumb questions. So someone got one. Felipe's probably got a question. He's on here.
I mean, I'll throw the usual one. I like hearing everybody's opinion. I usually ask the same question. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently to be where you're at today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think the first thing, Felipe, is I would have been more aggressive with with getting clients early on, right? So whether that, and some of the guys on your team are getting leads. So if you're buying your own leads, like once I got a really consistent and predictable lead flow in and appointment scheduling, then my business became really stable. Because what I've learned happens is if you have, like we saw Francis's schedule, if the 16th guy on Francis's schedule gets on Zoom with them and says like, oh, hey, I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. I heard IULs are a scam and like, you're an idiot and I'm never doing this. Like he can go, sounds good. Bye. Right. Like, or he can talk to him and try to logic through, but spend 5 minutes doing that. Right. But if you have 2 appointments for the day and one person says that, like you might get into a 3-hour debate with someone who wears a tinfoil hat about, the economic beliefs they have. And then to find out that they have $43 in their checking account. Right. So I think it's super important to have a very, very full schedule, because the more full your schedule, the more professional you are because you're busier. And then the more professional conversations you can have. Right. And if people are giving you a really hard time one way or the other, then you don't spend a ton of time with them. Like Felipe, when I felt like I got good at sales, I didn't think I was better at sales, but I just was more presumptive and more assumptive and more professional because I had so many people on there. I was trying to sift through to see if people would be a good fit for my time. Right. And I started looking at my time where I'm like, okay, like when I'm on a roll, my time's worth $1,000 an hour selling because I can make a sale every hour if I'm on a roll. And then if you got on the call and we're like, I could just tell right away that you weren't going to be a sale. I'm like, I can get back on the phone with the next person, and it allowed me to do things in the conversation. Like, hey, Felipe, you filled out this form looking for IULs. You said that you wanted to, make sure that your retirement was set up by the time you were 65 years old. Do you know a lot about IULs? Have you done any research, or do I need to go through that with you? And then you can, tell me like, okay, I don't know anything about it. I can run through it with you real quick, give you the 3 points: life insurance, cash value, living benefits. Right now, are you putting anything away for retirement? No, I'm just putting a little in my 401k. Okay, got it. Felipe, you're 36 years old right now. Like, is this something you're going to take seriously to be able to get to a point where you can retire when you're 65, or are you going to keep putting this off? No, I'm going to take it seriously. Okay, got it. Hey, being that you're already 36 years old, you're going to have to contribute, a decent amount of money. Have you thought about how much you could set aside for something like this per month, right? And I can ask a lot more presumptive questions and be, more aggressive, but like appropriately aggressive with clients, because I know that my time's valuable and I provide a really good service for them. And then if you're going, well, can I spend $36 a month on it? If I had no one on my schedule, I might go, well, yeah, you could spend that much if you want to. It just may not do very well. But if I'm super busy and my schedule is packed, I can go, Felipe, you're 36 years old, man. Can I speak to you respectfully? Of course. All right. If you're going to spend $36 a month to try to set yourself up for retirement, you're never going to be, you're going to be one of the guys at Walmart at 84 years old, greeting people at the door. And like, I don't want to see that for you. So for you to get to where you want to get to, you're going to have to be able to put $500-$600 a month into a policy like this. Is that something that you can figure out and you can commit to month in and month out? Well, yeah, I can. Right. But I'm not scared to ask that question or to be more presumptive or professional with the client, because I know if you say no, it's not going to affect whether or not I can pay my mortgage, because I have 13 other appointments today. So to your initial question, Felipe, everything fell in line and became very simple in the business when I had enough clients to talk to and I was busy enough where I wasn't begging people for sales. I really started treating it like I was the professional, like I was the doctor, they were the patient, and I was order taking for them and giving them a proper diagnosis, right? And figuring out what they really needed. And I wasn't just I didn't have commission breath. I wasn't trying to make sales for me. I was trying to provide a great service for the clients. And if they didn't want that service, I had someone else in 30 minutes. So I would jump to my next appointment. Does that make sense?
100%. That's great. Thank you so much.
So
Yes,
what you basically just told us is your script. Basically, you just, somebody gets on the phone, you say, hey, of course you have an introduction, and then you go right into, is this for you or not?
Yeah. Yes, sir. And I learned to do that early on. And I think what you learn in sales, right, is when to push and when to pull with people, right? So like, hey, have you done any research on this? I'll get a little bit of information out with them. And then you go back and forth, right? You learn how to connect with them a little bit, right? So say I was talking to you, John, and you say, yeah, I'm interested in this, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, John, where do you live at, John?
I live in Maine.
You live in Maine. Okay, got it. I've never been to Maine before. Actually, this is true. Actually, Maine is the only state I've not been to in my entire life.
You like
So
trees?
if I'm ever going to go to Maine, where should I visit if I plan on going there?
Of course, the coast.
The coast. Got it. Summertime, probably.
Yes.
Got it. I've heard they have great lobster there. Is that true or no? Is that just a wives' tale?
Best in the world.
Got it. I have to take your word for it because I've never been there, but I'll have to get up there at some point. So, anyways, John, I got us off track for just a minute, right? So, you said you've been looking into IULs for a little while. Did you have a certain amount that you were looking to contribute to something like this per month?
Well, what
Does
does
that
it
make sense,
cost?
guys? So, like, so okay, you go, what does it cost? Like, hey, it depends on what you're looking to accomplish. So, do you have anything else set up for retirement? Are you contributing anything else to retirement accounts? And a lot of people I talk to, our average client spends about $500 per month, but we can kind of custom make this to whatever you need it to be. So I guess, do you have any other contributions, and do you have a certain goal of the amount of money you want to have put away by the time you retire?
Yeah, I want $1 million.
You want $1 million. Okay, cool. So you're 27 years old right now. So for
Thank
us to
you.
get to $1 million, you're going to have to be put in, I can look at it and we can play with the illustration a little bit, but to get to that level, I assume that you're comfortable putting, somewhere between $500 and $1,000 a month into a policy, if that's your ultimate goal, right?
Yeah, but wouldn't I be better
Okay.
off with I don't know, a mutual fund?
Let me ask you a question. Do you think taxes are going to be higher right now or in, 40 years when you go to retire?
Oh, I'm guessing it's gonna be more when I retire.
Yeah, I mean, just given the massive amount of debt that we have as a country, I think it's a pretty safe guess that it'll be higher. So the way I think about that question is that, do I want to pay more or less taxes? Because if you put all that money into a mutual fund, you're going to pay a bunch of money in taxes when you take that out. And you should definitely have some mutual funds, but this is a good way to round out your retirement and have some tax-free money coming in. So, me thinking the taxes are going to probably be much higher in the future. My goal in life, one of my major goals in life, is to pay as little in taxes as possible. It's part of the reason I do some real estate stuff. I think real estate's boring, but it's a good tax offset. Also, I have an IUL, and because I want to be able to draw money out tax-free when I retire. Because as taxes are likely to go up, that means any of your retirement accounts are going to get taxed at a higher amount. So most of my clients like to have some sort of tax-free income coming in. Does that sound kind of like what you were looking to do too?
Yeah, for sure.
Right. And so I think, like, a couple of things, like when you're going through and talking to people in sales, you want to, get into the meat of it. The way I like to do anyways, I like to get started in the appointment, then build a little bit of rapport, then get back in the appointment, then build a little bit more rapport, and then, present yourself as a professional. Right. So then I would go, okay, John. So what I do is I work with a whole bunch of different companies that provide these type of plans. Your health, we talked about it. Sounds good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a Zoom link. I'm going to get you on there right now. I'm going to go through and look at a few companies and work on building out an illustration kind of custom to what you're looking for. And then I can show you exactly what this looks like, on the illustration. So you can see the numbers I'm talking about. So, I'm just not making crap up. Does that make sense?
Sure. Makes
Cool.
sense.
And then when we get done with that, we can go through and submit everything. And then you can give me a good recommendation on where I can get some good lobster at in Maine, and we'll wrap up today. Does that sound fair? Right. And it's like, I just want to be a real person, but I also want to be a professional. So they like me and trust me, but I can also kind of go back and forth. And I think a lot of people train, they're like, don't do any rapport building. I don't think that's good advice. I think you want to build rapport, but you want to be in control of the conversation, because your clients need to like and trust you for them to move forward with you. But they also need to be able to see you as a professional and understand that you know what you're talking about.
Makes sense. Wengu, if you're still on here, you had a question, you had your hand up, and then we'll get to Danny.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, Neal. And thank you, Zachary, for pouring into us. We need all that type of information as we are studying. I wanted to ask, I see you guys are having so much tremendous production a week. The leads that you use, are they provided by FFL or are they third party?
No, the one.
There's.
Go ahead, Zach. Sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Neal, because you guys have leads locked in. So I was going to say that Neal and Felipe and Oscar are all running their own campaigns, so third party. But there's also ones available through FFL. But I think the third party ones have been very good for people. I think the other thing that's important too is the amount of leads you end up getting is super important. So like, all the lead sources are great sometimes and they all suck sometimes, right? Like, everyone's going to have people that every lead type, like, here's an example. We had a case that's like $800,000 target case that we've been working through for a while now. That client came from like a $4 internet lead, right? Now, are all the $4 internet leads going to give you $800,000 target cases? No, but that one just happened to. And then sometimes you'll have a perfectly built campaign that you're getting your leads in from Google or wherever from, and you'll have clients that fill that out and they put something dumb in the header and it's not a real lead, right? So I think they're all great and they all suck, but it's just about having enough resources, enough clients to talk to, which I think, excuse me, I think you guys have a great lead plan and system built out for everyone already. So as soon as you're ready to roll, those guys will get you plugged in with the right resources to have enough people to talk to. But that's a great question. Leads are the most important part of the business, and where you can really, make headway is when you get good at working leads, and then you get good at, finishing that conversation, have built enough rapport where the client likes you, and then you can ask that client for referrals and, be able to tap into that client's warm market. Because, if you have someone who's, in the case of the role play with John, someone who's 27, 28 years old, let's say, that's willing to spend $500 to $1,000 per month, like they also probably hang out with 5 or 6 other people that are, financially savvy and want to put that type of money away per month, right? And you just have to do a really good job of asking the question, like, hey, Neal, are you happy with this? Are you glad that we set this up today? Yeah, I am. Cool. Hey, do you have anyone else that you think I could help out with a program like this? Because a lot of people either don't know they exist or don't know how to find a professional that could help them with it. So if you have anyone else that you think would need something like this, can you do me a favor and put us in a group message and just let them know that I'm going to be giving them a phone call? And you just have to be willing to ask for the referrals.
Perfect. Thank you. Danny, go ahead.
Hey, what's
Edgar.
up, Zach? Thanks for
Sorry.
the time, man. Really appreciate it. It's really inspiring to hear your story as someone who's new into the business. So really appreciate that. Just a quick question. You mentioned earlier that you had somebody on your team that was, starting to build out their team and they're just like absolutely crushing it. My question to you is, what do you think sets them apart, or some of the top IUL producers that you've seen or that have come up under you? What really distinguishes them from the others?
I think it's 2 things. I think the first thing is just resiliency or tenacity or grit or whatever you want to label that, but people that are just consistently keep working on good days, bad days, whether things are great or terrible. It's actually a pretty rare trait, I think, that people are able to do the same thing day in and day out, no matter how good or bad it's going, and take the approach of like, I'm going to make this work, not I hope that I make this work, right? So the people that can work really consistently and, understand that, like, if you're in business and you get paid really well, you get paid high commissions, like you get paid that way because there's going to be issues that come up. Like there's going to be good and bad days. There's going to be great things that happen. There's going to be terrible things that happen sometimes, right? But just understanding, like, going in that, there's going to be a lot. It's like a roller coaster being an entrepreneur, right? And the people that can just keep moving forward with a positive attitude every day and, keep moving forward no matter what happens. I think that's the first part. So people that are super consistent and have a lot of grit. And the second thing is people that have a small ego and are coachable, right? So I think it's good to have a healthy ego. So maybe not small ego, but people who have like a healthy ego, because most salespeople will have some sort of healthy ego, as they should. But as long as that doesn't get in the way of being coachable, then those people will be super successful. And what I've learned, and one thing I had to, keep talking to myself about was like, there's always going to be people who know more than me. Now that pool, as you progress in business, gets smaller and smaller, but there's always going to be people that are further ahead of you in business. And I had to learn, like, I never wanted to get to a place where I stopped seeking out knowledge and learning. And there have been times in my career where I've been like, no, I got this all figured out. Like, I'm the smartest person in the whole world. And then I get punched in the face, right? Every time that happens, it's a constant reminder to never, read your own press clippings, and think that you've arrived. And I think the people I've seen do the best in this business are the ones that are always curious about the business, always curious about how to get to the next level and never plateau out. And I think that, some people have a certain financial goal they get to and they hit it, but the people that are different, their goal is more about like impact and, leaving a legacy and, just obsessed with building things. And those people keep progressing and don't flatten out whenever they hit their financial goal. So I think, being coachable, being super persistent, and then, not having like there's that old saying, right? Like the man that loves to walk will go farther than the person that loves the destination. Like I want a lot of people that love the process of building a business and enjoy all the chaos that is being an entrepreneur. Because the people that have a certain financial goal will hit that and kind of tap out, right?
That's great. That's a great mindset talk right there. Lazaro, you're next.
Yeah, hey Zach, thanks for your time. A quick question since you've been in sales, from one salesperson to the other. You've obviously, throughout your time in FFL, you've had a lot of trial and errors from when you first started to where you're at now. So when it comes to your pitch, it looks like you're investing more time pre-qualifying the prospect before you just scheduling the second call. Have you seen a higher conversion rate when it comes to asking these questions like, hey, what's your budget, or what are you contributing right now, asking these pre-qualifications compared to before when you would just go based on the discovery pitch and not asking many questions?
I was kind of going through a theoretical. I don't sell every day anymore. Like I haven't been a full-time in the field agent. We have about 600 agents that I oversee. So I don't sell every day anymore. So whatever scripts and stuff you guys have laid out, I'm sure it's much more ironed out than whatever I just kind of blurted off the top of my head. So I would follow whatever scripts you guys have. But I think once you get to the point where you have so many clients coming in and you have to be careful with your time. So like early on in business, I took every single person that was willing to talk to me. And I even on Sundays, I would take all my leads that I couldn't get on the phone and I would go drive to all their houses and door knock them. Now I know everyone's getting leads nationwide now, so that's not really applicable. But I think early on, you want to get onto a presentation with every single person you can, because then you can go through and practice. And even if you're not going to sell it, you have to learn and be able to go through and understand in this specific industry what cues people give off. And, you start to understand who's serious and who's not serious. So I think you should go through as many presentations as you can early on. And then as you get a bigger bankroll and have more leads and more clients and more referrals, then you can be pickier once you have a super full pipeline. But I think as you're getting started, you want to get on as many presentations as possible. So your goal should just be to do the initial call, have them be interested enough to get onto the Zoom with you. And then, like I said, once you have, Francis's schedule where your calendar's packed and you have to pick and choose who you're going to spend an hour with going through a presentation because you have 7 other appointments lined up. Once you get to that point, then you can pre-qualify people a little bit more.
That's okay.
Excellent. Thank you. Oscar V, you're up, buddy.
Thank you, Zach. I just had one question. If you had it when you were starting off, do you think that where would you spend if you had limited in time? Where would you spend most of your time if you didn't have to do lead generation? If you had to do with leads, would you spend more time increasing your skill level or just trying to practice with leads?
Oh, practicing with leads, 100%. Like so you mean like would I spend more time like doing like mock presentations or like real presentations with clients? Yeah, 100% real presentations with clients, because the mock presentations, like you can get close and you can kind of replicate a real presentation, but when you're the agent, like if it's a real presentation or not. And dude, I remember, Oscar, my first appointment I scheduled, again, it was in person, but I scheduled an appointment with a lady, sweet old lady, and I drove back and forth by her house like 4 times before I finally parked and went in because I was nervous, And you can't replicate that in a role play. Like you can't replicate the nerves and the jitters you have. So I think I love for agents to work as many, like whatever leads you have coming in, great, but as many old leads as possible for them to get real live, action on calls. And it's good to get told no. It's good to have people, kick you in the mouth, because then you learn how to get better. And it's really hard to replicate that in a role play. So I think my favorite way to get started is like, here's a stack of leads, call them. What do I say? Here's a script. Okay. What do I say? Well, dial them and then I'll tell you what to say. They get them on the phone. What do I say? Dude, read the script. I don't know. And then get people in the process of going through it. And then once they've gone through a few calls, then you can go, okay, like you had 10 calls, you set 1 appointment, these 9 that I heard you make, here's what you could have said differently to get to the appointment, right? All right, now go make 20 more calls and I'm here for you, right? When you get someone on the phone, put them on speaker so I can hear and I can help coach you during the call. But I think you can't beat a live, live client. It's really hard to replicate. And my goal for new agents is like, I want you to get through your first 100 presentations. Once you get through your first 100 presentations, then you'll be good. But your goal should just be, how do I get through my first 100 presentations and be somewhat profitable along the way? Once you get through that, you'll be rolling and you'll know what to say. You'll see all the different scenarios. There's only a handful of objections, but you can learn them really quickly if your goal is just to pump out activity and then get better later.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay,
Yes,
we'll
sir.
do Oscar D, and then we'll wrap up with Troy. And so go ahead, Oscar.
Hey, Zach. I appreciate your time, your knowledge, and your confidence. What I'm taking from this meeting tonight, is what you rarely hear about when you're new to a business, and that is, and Francis made up something that made me like aware. He's mentioned that on the first day of the week he had 11 no shows. And then you, Zach, you spoke about, that emotional roller coaster, because if that was somebody new that had 11 no shows on their first day, it would be easy to say, I'm done, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you don't hear about that when you go into a business. You see other people just flashing jewelry and flashing their cars, but they're not telling you how they got there. So
Yeah.
it's very important that that's ingredient is included. So I truly appreciate it. I've been in a lot of businesses, and failure is not something that gets brought up. And I'm not saying that this is a failure, but it's part of the process, right? So we make mistakes, and sometimes people will not show up or whatnot, but it's very important to stay positive and just trust the process, and just keep on rocking.
Yeah.
So thank you.
No, you're totally right. And I think whenever I bring people into business too, I'd rather overemphasize how hard it's going to be, so that when they have success, then they're like, oh, like that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, as opposed to make it like this is the easiest thing in the whole world. Like everyone's going to be a millionaire. Because one, it's not true. Like in order to make a lot of money, you get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace, right? Like that's how capitalism works. So if things are hard, like you're going to get paid a lot of money if you can withstand it, right? So if I tell everyone it's the easiest business in the world, everyone's like, oh, it's a scam, like it's not real. And that would be true, right? Like anything that makes a lot of money requires a lot of hard work, right? And you either have to invent something super unique, or like have gotten lucky, like buying cryptocurrency 3 years ago or 5 years ago, or like work really hard and build a big business, right? And so I think that's the reality of it. And I would prefer to shoot people straight and even overemphasize how hard it can be sometimes, so that they're prepared for that. And then when they have a bad day, they don't quit. Because I think I've done the other way too, where I'm like, no, this business is easy because it seems easy when you get rolling. But then if I tell someone how easy it is, to your point, if they have 11 appointments, they all get no show, they don't sell anything, then they think that it's their fault and they quit.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm like, no, that happens to everyone. Then they're like, oh, okay, like tomorrow will probably be better, right? Yeah, it'll be better.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
All right, Troy, make it a good one, brother.
All right, guys. Hey, wow, this is awesome. Zac, man, you are amazing, buddy. Love your mindset. Neal, thanks for facilitating this. I guess my question is just more so, Zac, it seems like you had great success in person as and also remotely. I just want to get your take on the in-person versus remote, and what you have seen success-wise with other agents. Are they able to just hop in and be successful if they're consistent remotely? I just want to get your take on that.
Yeah, if I was selling full time now, and last year when we started messing around with IUL leads and figuring all that stuff out, I went back in the field and sold for 2 months just to understand the process. And there's no question I would be remote now, because a few reasons. Like one, it's so much more scalable. It's much more efficient time wise. Like I was on a plane 3 times a week to go see people in the field, right? At one point. And so from a business building standpoint, it's much more scalable, right? Because you can get leads anywhere in the country. You can get a bunch of leads. You can get leads for less expensive, and I can recruit people anywhere. And then the other part that's way better than in person is, if you get no-showed in person and you have a 20-minute drive to your next appointment, and then that person no-shows you, then you have a 2-hour gap, and you're like, am I going to go door knock in the 110-degree heat, or am I going to sit in the parking lot at Walmart and watch Netflix on my phone? Which, by the way, I've done both of those before. I prefer to door knock, but I would lie if I said I'd never, pulled up Netflix on my phone and been like, I'm going to take a break for a minute. But when you're virtual, like if someone no-shows, you just call another person and try to get into a one-call close right then and there, right? And so I think the other side of that is, because virtual is much more scalable, it requires more discipline, right? Like if you're sitting at home all day in front of your computer, it can be easy to go like, dude, I have a 2-year-old right now. Like it's the most fun time ever. Like she's always like, Dada, like give me, like, I'm like, I would rather go hang out with her every day. And I know myself. So I'm like, we had to get an office in Austin where I go to every day still. and I go into the office, I leave my house at 8 o'clock, I get back at 5 or 6 p.m., but it allows me to be a lot more locked in. And I think when you're virtual, you just have to make sure that your schedule is full and you're super disciplined with your time, because it can be super easy to like, oh, maybe I should go mow the grass today or clean my room. I'm like, I never do any of that stuff. Like, it's just me trying not to work, right? So you just have to be conscious of being more disciplined, because it is easier to sit there and make calls. It's also easier to, to go throw on the TV or do something non-productive, right? So I think as long as you're intentional with your time, the virtual world has made this infinitely more scalable. And I think it goes to show with how much we've grown since we've gone virtual. I looked at it the other day because someone asked me, we were doing like $1.5 million to $2 million a month when we were doing all mostly infield. And then 2 years later, we're doing close to $6 million a month. And to get to that 2 million, it took 4 or 5 years to get there. A couple of years after, we've tripled our volume. And I think that's just because of the scalability of being, virtual and being able to, make so many more dials and presentations per day than you could when you were in the field.
Way to go, Troy. You delivered. That was excellent. That's a great note to end on. So, Zac, thank you so much for jumping in. You followed up Juan. You did a pretty good job, I got to admit.
Juan is hard to follow up. Yeah.
So I think when we look back at this time, a year from now, we're not even going to believe the growth that we've experienced. All you guys know what you're doing. Some of you have done face-to-face. We transition. I look at Daniel, Francis, myself. We were face-to-face. I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't sweating bullets on my first presentation, because it's very nerve-wracking. But just like anything else, you learn it, and then you look back and you go, I can't believe I was so concerned about what this process would be. So,
yeah. Neal, the other thing, I want to wrap with this real quick. Someone said, like, you're amazing. And I don't think that I'm special in any way. I think that everyone here can do exactly what I've done. What I've done, I think, well, is worked really hard and had a really coachable attitude. And like, I don't want anyone to think I'm special or have any, special knowledge or anything like that. I've gotten kicked in the teeth a lot more than most people. And I've just gone out there and made a mess and tried everything under the sun to make this business grow and to get good at sales. And I think, like, what I would leave everyone with is what your number one goal should be able to just ramp up your activity as high as you can get it and make a mess of it, and understand that it's normal to make a mess. And then while you're making a mess, call people like Neal and Oscar and Daniel and, everyone else on here, and Francis, and get feedback on the mess you're making. Because it's usually just tiny little tweaks that can take you from, closing 20% to closing 60%. But it's really hard to implement things if you don't have enough sample size. So go out there, do a ton of presentations. If you don't have enough leads, work your warm market, call friends, family, ask them to let you do presentations, but just get a ton of presentations under your belt, and then be willing to get feedback on what you can do better on those. And you'll be amazed how fast you'll get better. So I'd love to leave everyone with that thought. But
awesome. Well, thank you, Zac. Appreciate you. Thanks for everybody jumping on. We'll do this next week. We'll have a different speaker. And you guys just have a great week. Let's keep the momentum going. Thanks, Zac.
Cool. Thanks, Neal.
Good night, guys.
Thank you, Neal. Awesome. Great turnout. Thank you.